The second thing that stories are going to do for you is they're going to help you make a presentation that people are going to remember. For the most part, what most people do when they're delivering a presentation is they're going to put tons of different bullet points up on a slide, and then they'll talk a little bit about one bullet point. Basically read the bullet point, give you a little bit of additional information, go back, read the second bullet point, give you a little bit of information, and it's very boring, it's very dry. And most of the time, those bullet points are going to be facts, statistics, data, that kind of thing, right? And the reason why is we think that data is very powerful, and it is. Data is really important to your presentation. You got to have the details in the presentation. But it's not the data itself that's most important. It's the story behind the data that actually makes the presentation memorable, makes it helpful. I'll give you an example of this. When I was maybe 6 years old or so, and I had this great idea because basically at the age of 6, I had a job. I would basically go out and I would collect Coke bottles. And the Coca-Cola company kind of destroyed my entire income in one summer because they went from putting their Coca-Cola in Coke bottles to aluminum cans, and basically created a severe amount of unemployment in my family anyway. So here I'm 6 years old, don't really have a job, so I'm thinking, how in the world can I get some money to go out and buy some more Cokes and candy and stuff like that, right? Well, what I realized was that my dad, when he would come home from work, he would kind of take his change out of his pocket, he'd put it up on his nightstand, right? So I thought, if I walked into my dad's bedroom and I stole money from him and he caught me, I'd be in a boatload of trouble, right? But my little brother Daniel, he was only like 3, right? He didn't know any better. So basically, what I did was I convinced Daniel to go in and get some coins, right? So he kind of sneaks in. He's not very sneaky, right? So he goes in and he takes a coin off of the nightstand. He comes rushing back, wants to show me how well he's done, and basically hands me a penny because he liked the color, right? Thought it was very pretty. So I'm going, okay, well go back and next time, Dan, go back and get something a little bigger, right? And so he goes back into the bedroom one more time. He comes out. This time he's got a nickel. I was like, no, Dick, come on, really? I mean, that's not going to buy us anything, because even back then, 6 cents wasn't a whole lot of money. And so I sent him back in one more time. He goes in, grabs another penny, comes back out, and so I got 7 cents. So this has been going on for about 4 minutes now. And we've got a total of booty of about 7 cents, not enough to really do anything with. So I'm thinking, Daniel is not that sneaky. So if he's gotten away with this 3 times, the coast is probably clear. So I go sneaking into my dad's room, and I'm kind of poking around the furniture and everything, and reach up, I grab a couple of quarters, and I start to walk out. Just about the time I start to walk out of the room, I look, and Dad's billfold is sitting on top of the nightstand as well. And I'm going, I'm not going to take any, but it's kind of full, so I kind of open it up, and we were pretty poor, but we lived about, maybe 30 miles from the closest bank or so. So Dad always had a lot of cash. It was, basically a few 20s and maybe some 5s and 10s, but he had a lot of ones. And I figured that with that many ones, he probably hadn't counted them all. So I put all the quarters back where I kind of got them from. I took $1 out. I folded it up folded the billfold up, and right back where I put it, where I got it from anyway. And I started to walk out the door. And I'm kind of thinking back, because I'm thinking, man, maybe I should get one for Daniel as well, right? So I don't want to be greedy, right? So I start to walk out. Just about the time I get to the door, I went boom, like that. I ran right into my dad's stomach. He'd been standing there the whole time watching the whole thing, and I did what any 6-year-old did, right? I lied my head off. I said, Dad, you would not believe what Daniel just did. He was taking money, and I was walking backwards into the room to put it back in your billfold, and he didn't buy it because he'd been standing around the corner for about the last 6 minutes or so listening to me coach my little brother on how to properly steal money from him. And so what my dad did at that moment, though, was by the way, I was terrified because, my dad is he's a really nice and sweet kind of guy, but he's not a timeout kind of person, so I knew this was going to be pretty bad. But what he did was, in that situation, was basically what he did through a lot of my adolescence anyway, was he set me down on his bed. I still got the dollar in my hand, right? He set me down on his bed, and he told me a story about when he was in the Army. He said that when he was about 17 years old, he and his buddy got a weekend pass to basically go off base for a little while, right? And his buddy worked in the motor pool. One of the things that by working at the motor pool, one of the things that they got access to was the Jeeps, because a lot of the GIs didn't have cars back then, right? So he was able to. So they were able to go into town, and the only stipulation was that they could use the Jeeps, the base Jeeps, as much as they wanted, as long as they filled up the gas tank on the way back, right? Since my dad's buddy worked at the motor pool, they kind of figured out that they could probably, have a couple more beers in town if they filled up the gas tank on the base when they got back, because his buddy had the key, right? So they sneaked back on the base. They kind of filled up the gas tank, and just about the time they put the last little swig of gasoline in the car, the MPs kind of drive up and asked them what they were doing, and of course they had no excuse for why they were kind of taking gasoline out of the base at that hour. And they ended up getting taken into custody. I actually put my dad and his buddy in handcuffs, took him into the stockade, and told him that. And luckily, my dad was telling me that luckily, he had a pretty understanding commanding officer, and kind of chalked it up for the youthful kind of indiscretion. But he said that in the Army, it doesn't really matter whether you steal 25 cents worth of gasoline or $25,000. It's a theft. That's the crime, right? There is no gray area. And he said that he could have been put away for like 20 years. I'm sitting there holding that dollar in my hand, and I'm thinking, good God, you get 20 years for a quarter. What the heck do you get for a dollar, right? So anyway, but that story, that example happened to me, I don't know, 32, 33 years ago, 34 years ago now. And I still remembered enough detail that I can kind of recite it to you. And if you think back about some of the details that I gave you very early on, like if I asked you what my brother's name, probably pop into your head right now is that his name was Daniel, right? And if I asked you how much money he stole, right? That 7 cents kind of pops into your head, right? The interesting thing about stories is you can give a tremendous amount of details, and for some reason, the human brain processes it in a very effective way so that it's very easy to remember it. So if you want to get your audience to really retain the information that you're offering, make sure and fill your presentation with lots of examples.